Hey guys, hi. I've been struggling with Integrity and Chromecast and whatever else I was trying to do to record. Sorry, don't mean to be making you dizzy trying to figure out how to do this. To record basically, or to record the video, and I'm struggling, so we're using my phone. Gotta adapt, right? So, hold on just a second, we're gonna see how to balance this out here. So, yeah, that sort of works. We'll go with that. Redos and retakes done right. PLC 12 with Wormelli. So, I really enjoyed this article. This article was allowed for... Well, basically, the whole idea behind it that I liked was ensuring success from our students, and that's really, as educators, what we want. We want our students to be educated, and to learn the things that we want them to learn. And so, I just, to me, that really resonated with me. So, how do we go about doing this? What do we expect all students to learn? Well, the goal is that all students learn the content, not just the ones who can learn on the uniform timeline. And so by ensuring that students are learning, that means that we got to throw out that timeline and allow for redos and retakes. For the students that can learn on that timeline, that's great. That's wonderful. We want that. But we can't expect that from all students. And so that means we need to be willing to accommodate. Sort of sarcastically, just to emphasize a point, Wormelli throws in this quote: "To be successful in school, we have to be just as good at all subjects and skills as everyone else is, and on that same schedule." There's a lot of content for students to know. As he states, there's 22, or what was it? There's roughly about 22 years. Or you have to reach grade 22 to teach the amount of curriculum, is an estimate that he gives on page 24 there. And I feel that's just crazy, to be honest. That means that as educators, we need to really pare down and figure out what those big ideas are and how are we going to teach our students to learn that. And because not all students will be able to learn in the same time frame, we must be willing to accommodate. But our ideal goal for what we want our students to learn is to prepare them. The best preparation for the world beyond school is to learn the essential content and skills. So that means we need to know what the essential content is and what the skills are, and how to teach them. I think that the skills primarily go down to those 6 facets of understanding, and then Marzano's 9 as well. I mean, I feel like those are the skills that we want them to learn, as well as the 21st century skills. So those are collaboration and things like that. True competence that stands the test of time with relative learning. I think that sorry, no, that's not what that says. True competence that stands the test of time comes with reiterative learning. So what that means is that we need to teach students how to be competent, but we have to be willing to provide them with opportunities to practice and to get better and to continue. And you only do that by allowing them opportunities to retake and redo things. And then that leads into the last quote here on this one. Maturation occurs in the fully credited recovery from unsuccessful attempts, not by labeling those attempts as failures. And I think that's really important. That's sort of how we build character. I especially think of this from a coaching standpoint. You lose a game, and it's not that You don't tell your kids, oh, well, you should quit, you're awful. No, you say get back out there next time and figure out what you did wrong, how to do it right, and do it and win. And so that's sort of the same mentality that you got to bring into education. And I think that's sort of what it is. It's all character building. It teaches you how to overcome obstacles and persevere through adverse conditions. And I think those are some of the main skills that we need to emphasize in our classroom. And that really happens by allowing retakes and redos. So how will we know if and when a student has learned? Well, that's the whole idea behind retakes and redos, is we want our students to learn. So how will we know? Well, if a student improves from their first attempt to their second attempt to their third attempt, we know that students have learned. So that just makes sense. But then what is it that the students are learning? They're learning their content. So it makes sense to grade students according to their performance on the standards, not the routes that it takes to achieve those standards. That means timelines. Sometimes we've got to throw that out. If a student learns that material, but in an extended timeline by doing several retakes or redos, then that means, that leads into that second quote, we improve with practice, descriptive feedback, and revising practices in the light of that feedback, followed by more practice, feedback, and revision. So then it turns into a cycle. You're constantly improving, and that's how we know if a student has learned. And then it's only sensible then to expect different things of students during the learning process than we expect from them when it's time to demonstrate their final proficiency or become fully certified. So what does that mean then? That means that, our students are going to mess up when they're learning. And we want them to, because only by them messing up will they be able to figure out what they need to do to improve. So this leads into PLC question 3. How will we respond when some students don't learn? Well, that's the whole idea behind this article, is that some students aren't going to learn in that specific time frame that you allot. So what does that mean? Well, there are 14 practical tips for managing redos in the classroom. He provides that on page 24 and 25. And it's really important that these are the ways to do that. One in specific one that I want to point out is number 8, and if the same student repeatedly asks for redos, something is wrong. The content is not developmentally appropriate. If there are any unseen issues at home, or perhaps there's an undiagnosed learning disability, we need to investigate. Investigating why a student might not be improving during this redo process, during this retake process, might be important, but ideally a student shouldn't need to ask for a retake in everything. It should be just on specific aspects if they totally botch something. But when students fail to learn content on this conveyor belt method, we tell them, we don't have time to go back and teach you. Take the low grade and move on. But Wormelli says that this is no way to treat a child's future or conduct our profession. We want to ensure that learning happens, and so by doing that, that means we must allow redos and retakes. So by making students redo their learning until it meets these high expectations of this specific content that we deem as valuable, it demands far more from both the students and the teachers than letting them take a failing grade. But it also results in far more learning. And I think it's really important to emphasize how much learning is going to be taking place. Because as Wormelli states, Mr. Wormelli makes you do it over and over again until you learn it. It sucks. I'm sorry, but if that's how learning has to occur, that's how it occurs. And those students, I'm certain, are grateful for someone pushing them, making sure that they carry themselves out through an entire task until they get it done, until they learn the material. And if our mission is to teach so that students learn, then we won't let immaturity dictate their destiny. We won't let them just say, I don't really care about learning right now. I'm not going to do well and I just could care less. No. You make it your mission to teach the students. You make them learn it, and by doing so, they will eventually learn if you make them do those retakes and find improvement. So, this finally leads into the last PLC question. How will we respond when some students have already learned? To me, this is a tricky question in regards to this specific article. The article is based off of messing up the first time. The students that have already learned don't typically need the redos or the retakes. But one thing that it does allow is it allows for a safety net. Students may not mess up, and they may have already learned content, but it does allow for, if a student does get a B, and let's say that they really want an A on that paper, but they only got a B, they can go back and they can improve their grade to get that A. If they want to be that high achieving student, which we want all of our students to be, but if they have that internal drive to get that A, who's to say that we should stop them? So that's an option. And then with students who have already learned, one thing is they will be able to provide phenomenal feedback for the students who are struggling, who do need that retake. They'll be able to help provide feedback and mentor or tutor those students to help them figure out what they need to do. Another thing is it allows for students who get C's and B's to redo work just as much as students who get D's and F's. So again, this just sort of reiterates why stand in the way of students who wants to achieve. And then the students who have already learned are the gifted students, and they're going to be the ones that are going to be taking the high stakes. Typically, they're the ones that are going to be taking the high stakes graduate exams. The LSAT, the MCAT, the GRE, let's see, what else does he have? The Praxis, the SAT, the bar exams, all these different things. The high stakes assessments. It's going to be your learners, your gifted and already learned students will be ones, not to say that you aren't going to have others, but they will be ones that will be taking these tests. And so in these tests, through practice of taking these tests, they're going to have multiple opportunities to do them. That means we need to give them multiple opportunities to practice similar type things, similar type high stakes tests, and give them opportunities to find success. And so that's another thing that I think is important. And then the students who have already, so then that's that. They need to have ample practice. And that way they'll be able to see improvement in a highly achieved status, like they would see in that LSAT, MCAT, and SAT and bar exams and things like that. And then one thing that I want to talk about is yesterday at the symposium, there was this neat opportunity, or a neat video that Monica had showed, and it was about a butterfly drawing, and it showed this first grader that had drew a butterfly that was supposed to be scientific, and it wasn't very scientific to begin with, but through the feedback and collaboration of the group, they were able to figure out how to improve the drawing, and so then he would improve the drawing and show it, and then finally it came to be to where he had that almost scientific, it looked very, almost like a textbook type drawing from a first grader. And so it was incredible to see. But if like the teacher had just accepted that first drawing of a piddly little kid butterfly as a scientific drawing, then it wouldn't have been that high level of learning. And I think that's how we need to approach much of the content that we provide our students with learning. We expect it to be poor. And only by learning and feedback, only by providing the feedback and revisions will that take place to where it's at a high level that is acceptable for the purpose of learning the content. And I think that's really the emphasis that we want to go with. As educators, that's what we want. We want a high level of content and a high standard of learning that content. And if that's what we desire, if we desire a high standard, a high level, the only way to approach that is you aren't going to go from, level 1 to level 10 in one shot. Sometimes, you might be able to jump 2 or 3 levels at once, but there's steps that you have to take. And that's only through practice and revision and feedback. And, that's how to work it.